Shalom. This week we begin the third book of the Torah, Sefer Vayikra, and he called, known as Leviticus. And this week's Torah portion is the first parasha, Parashat Vayikra. You know, we always face some sort of challenge when we begin the book of Vayikra again. For many of us, it's difficult to relate to identify with, to appreciate. Granted, there must be beautiful symbolism and allegorical meaning, but can the Torah seriously expect us to bring animal sacrifices in our day and age? Many people who confess sincere belief in the eternity and divinity of Torah find themselves facing a difficult conundrum. If indeed we believe the Torah is divine and immutable and will not be substituted or changed, then indeed, how are we to deal with the whole business of the temple offerings? First of all, the offerings are called Korbanot, and this is mistranslated terribly as sacrifices, because actually the root of the word korban means to draw close. So it's all about drawing close to Hashem. But if this whole thing is just a history lesson, and this is just about this particular period in Jewish history when animal offerings were brought, fine. But as you know, the Torah is not a history book. So if we have a hard time accepting these instructions for the Holy Temple that we will now be learning so much about, that will be occupying so much of our time now in the book of Vayikra, do we have a problem? I call this the Vayikra challenge. And you know, children, little children, traditionally, ever since way back when, little Jewish children begin their Torah study career with this book. When they first learn how to read and they start to study the Chumash, they don't start at Genesis, but they start at Leviticus. As our sages state, let the pure come and occupy themselves, study the pure. So it's like, if only we could start over again as innocent as little children. Since they are not jaded or prejudiced by the world yet, they are unfettered by disbelief. They can still take Hashem at His word, wide-eyed, wondrous. They're ready to receive. They're not yet so sophisticated that they know that they could actually dictate reality on their own terms. So the first two verses of our parsha begin. And he called to Moses, and Hashem spoke to him from the tent of meeting, saying, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when a man from among you brings an offering to Hashem, from animals, from cattle, or from the flock, you shall bring your offering. But the verse said, and he called to Moses, and then continued, and the Lord, and Hashem spoke to him. So when we first confront this verse, who called to Moses? It doesn't say. The language is awkward. The way the phrases are broken up. He called to Moses. It's Hashem, all right. But what did he say also? Verse doesn't tell us that either. Doesn't tell us what God communicated to Moshe in this initial calling. And then the verse goes on to say what Hashem did say to Moshe from the tent of meeting. Speak to the children of Israel, etc., when a man from among you. So from the get-go here, Hashem is sort of hidden. The speaker at first, which is Hashem, is not identified, and neither was the speaking. So Rashi explains on these words, and he called to Moses, he says, the divine voice emanated and reached Moses' ears, while all the rest of Israel did not hear it. So the voice is coming from the tent of meeting, and it's going straight into Moshe's ears. Rashi explains, what's the purpose of subsections in the Torah? To give Moshe a pause, to give him a chance to contemplate between one passage and the next, between one subject and another. And Rashi says, if this pause for contemplation was given to the great Moses when being taught by God, then how much more so is it necessary for an ordinary man learning Torah from another ordinary man to be allowed pauses between sections and subjects to carefully contemplate and ponder and understand the material being learned? So I already know two things. That no one else could hear this call, and that there's a lot to contemplate here. What does this mean, this calling that only Moshe could hear? And he in turn gave over God's words about this entire subject, this entire book, to everyone. What is it about these concepts that need to be communicated in this manner? It's almost like stealth. First of all, this book is about our world as it is today. For many people, what it communicates is not easy to hear, because hearing it, really hearing it, understanding it, requires taking responsibility. This book is about the difference between human beings and animals. And if all of Torah's mitzvot can be correctly defined as advice, that's the most beautiful definition of what a mitzvah is. It's advice. Well, if all of the Torah's mitzvot can be correctly defined as advice, then this particular book conveys cautionary advice to aid a man in becoming a man and not becoming a lust-driven, sadistic, self-centered killer. This book is about the tikkun of human beings being created in God's image. It's about the eternity of life, and it's about remaining ever sensitive to the sanctity of life. Very beautiful prayer called Perek Shira, Chapter of Song, which is an esoteric prayer recited daily by the very pious, which recounts the songs of praise to God that are uttered by every aspect of creation, and they can't be said by all of the different animals and aspects of creation until man says them first, because through man, all forces come together and can be uplifted or destroyed, as we see all around us. So everything that we've been studying in Torah, the whole book of Genesis, the whole book of Exodus, has been leading up to this point. Now that Israel is out of Egypt and settled, as it were, it's time to get down to business. It's time to fulfill what we were taken out of Egypt for, and that is to serve Hashem. This is going to be our occupation now, and it is now the preoccupation of this Sefer Vayikra. That's the plan. And in general, it's our life's work, serving Hashem. It's what we'll be doing now, constantly serving Hashem. But what is that exactly? How do we serve God? By ritual and symbolism? By sacrificing animals? See, this is the misunderstanding. This is not about serving God, meaning what most people assume that kind of a ceremony is. It's not about making Him happy. It's not about mollifying or placating Him. The service, the avodah of Hashem, regarding which the sages teach that the world rests on three pillars: Torah, avodah, the service, and acts of loving kindness. This serving is about the constant, intense, introspective, wrenching work of becoming and staying a human being. And this must be such a full-time job, such an important thing, so hard, so difficult, because it is so emphasized in Torah. It's why God chose to have an abode below in this world, a place to rest His presence. It's why we are supposed to build the Mishkan, the Holy Temple, in the first place. So I want to try for a moment, rather than start from a place in my mind that we are so smart and advanced and sophisticated, that instead we open up our hearts. And maybe I'm the one who's primitive and outdated, because my head is primitive and outdated, because the prism through which I view the world is me alone. My needs, drives, desires, and most importantly, what makes me comfortable comes along Sefer Vayikra, the book of Leviticus, beginning with a still small call, takes us completely out of our comfort zone. And Torah is constantly pushing us not to plunge into the abyss, not to be swallowed up, but to stay human and sensitive. And given the preeminence of this issue, we can surmise that the danger of a man becoming an animal must be a very serious problem indeed. It's not relevant. Why is the world more violent than ever before? Why is there less reverence for life? Why is there less of a difference between man and beast than before? Another thing that this book, Vayikra, and in general the Holy Temple, is not about, it's not about the slaughter of animals. The offerings that Hashem enumerates here, that He gives over to Moshe, and the instructions for which Moshe gives over to the people, they demonstrate the greatest reverence for life. Vayikra Open up your heart in the deepest way. Vayikra, the heart of the Torah, the middle of the Torah, is the primary source book of Hashem's kindness, compassion, and mercy, as demonstrated by the consistent and exclusive use of His great name, Hashem's name, Yud, He, and Vav, and He. The name of mercy is the only one that exclusively appears in this book. Every word expressed by God concerning the Korbanot, the offerings. Let's make a revolutionary new definition of the word. The closeness makers. You see, because Korban is about litkarev, to draw close. So the Korbanot are the closeness makers. And every word about them, expressed by God, is an outpouring of kindness to man. So God's will was for Israel to construct the tabernacle for His presence, so that His purpose in creation and in the creation of man would be fulfilled. And every detail of this home for God, as we have been studying for so many weeks now in the book of Exodus, every detail conveys awesome secrets, and every detail has its own specific purpose and tikkun. And this would be the place for the indwelling of His Shekhinah, presence in this world, right? Exodus 25:8. They shall make for me a sanctuary, and I will dwell among them. And from this place, God's holiness and the ability for man to connect with that would flow out to all the world in a way that would enable all those who truly yearn and desire to attach to that holiness to be able to do so. And indeed, when the work was all finished, as we are told at the conclusion of Parashat Vayikra last week, and Moshe finished all the work, and the glory of Hashem filled the tabernacle. And it's at this point right here, when Hashem's presence filled this special place, that our third book of the Torah, Sefer Vayikra, begins. And how does it begin? He gives us the first word that He's going to give us from that place. It's a dibur. It's a statement. It's not a commandment. And the statement is, when a man will offer from among you an offering to Hashem, and etc., the details of how. It doesn't say, by the way, which would make more sense grammatically, when a man from among you, when he offers, but rather it says, when a man offers from among you. This is very, very important. This word, mikem, from you. It means from you, from yourself, because Hashem is looking for us to make what's called the itateruta dilatata, the lower arousal, the first move, that we should be inspired, motivated to want to come close to Him. This is the meaning of the use of the word mikem. The desire should be ours. And this dibur, this statement, it's in the language of, and He called to Moshe Vayikra. He called to Moshe, that aleph at the end of the word. So Moshe here is at the receiving end. But at Matan Torah, at the Sinai revelation, the first dibur, also there, the 10 Commandments don't begin with a command, they begin with a statement. I am Hashem your God. And that first statement also began with an aleph. It was a beginning letter. And this aleph is at the end of the first dibur, the first statement that He gives us from the place of His abode. So this aleph, in both cases, represents the alufo shel olam, the aleph, the master of the world, the only one, the source of all holiness. And the aleph at the Sinai revelation represents the Creator who brings forth everything, right? That was at the beginning of the word. Because then the arousal was coming from Hashem, up to down. But now, the first dibur, the first statement emanating from the holiness of the tabernacle, is the word, and He called, with the aleph at the end, because these two diburim, the statement that was uttered at Mount Sinai and the statement that is uttered in the tabernacle, is the connection. That this holiness comes from the previous manifestation. And so He called to Moshe. This is the continuation of Sinai, but here's where we have to open up our hearts now. Because no commandment was given at the beginning of this parsha of the Korbanot. Only when a person offers. Like, when you want to do it, okay, so then do it according to all these details. In other words, every opportunity to draw close to God, to separate ourselves from our own failings, it has to be our move. It has to start with a man's recognition of himself and his desire to want to elevate himself and get closer. So this Torah portion gives over to Moshe instructions for him to give over to all of Israel, the details of how to bring offerings in the tabernacle later to become the holy temple. And there are many different offerings that are described here. Burnt offerings of cattle, of smaller animals, of birds, meal offerings, baked offerings, pan offerings, deep-fried offerings, first grain, peace offerings of cattle, of sheep, of goats, sin offerings, guilt offerings, misappropriation offerings. There's a lot to learn here. But the whole concept of the Korbanot, these acts that are closeness makers, they're based on the understanding that Hashem himself is the merciful one. He's the definition of mercy. He's merciful to all creation, and it's all about and for man, the center of creation. In the temple, God renews man's spirit, his dignity, his divine image, and the inspiration in his heart. Despite everything that he's been through, he throws him a rope. That's what the Korbanot are. That's what the temple service is. He throws him a rope so that he doesn't fall into despair and sink into the hopelessness of the blurring of the divine image and the loss of the divine image. And in his great mercy, Hashem arouses a person from his slumber and inspires him with a new desire to draw close in a relationship based on the godly image of mercy, of being merciful. And it's through the Kohanim in the Holy Temple who are the messengers of this compassion, the compassionate one to have mercy on creations and to draw them close. So Adam ki yakriv, when a man will bring an offering. So how can we all be like the beautiful little children who begin their first experience of Torah study with the book of Vayikra? The little children who, like Moshe, they're able to hear the call coming from the tent of meeting. And I know it's a problem. And I know Vayikra is a problem for many people because this is just not something that they're willing to be able to hear now. Just doesn't seem to fit in with everything else. So how do we do that? It seems to me sort of like the concept that's referred to as the suspension of disbelief. This is an idea, it's a term, the suspension of disbelief, or willing suspension of disbelief. It's been defined as a willingness to suspend one's critical faculties and believe the unbelievable. The term, actually, was first coined in 1817 by the poet and aesthetic philosopher Samuel Taylor Coleridge, who suggested that if a writer could infuse a human interest in a semblance of truth into a fantastic tale, the reader would suspend judgment concerning the implausibility of the narrative. Don't get me wrong, Hashem's Torah is no fantastic tale. But maybe if we could only suspend our disbelief long enough to remember that no matter how hard it is for us to swallow, Hashem believes in us and never suspends that belief. And it was on account of his belief in man that he created the world and sought to have an abode here. So maybe if we can suspend our disbelief, we can understand that understanding the concepts of the book of Leviticus are the key to understanding the nature of the godly soul that we have within us. That the creator of all life entrusted to man, hoping, if you would, God suspending his disbelief, hoping that we would shine it up, this soul, that we could become a reflection of his divine light in this world by rising above our own base animal instincts and by constantly refining the gift of our humanity. That is exactly what the purpose of the closeness-making Korbanot in the Holy Temple is all about. By accepting our responsibility to become Adam, by drawing close to the Aleph, the Alufo Shel Olam, the Master of the World, Vayikra. And he called the whole Sefer, the whole book of Leviticus starts with that call. Who can hear that call? The call is Adam. When a person from you, the call is for each and every one of us to become Adam, to become a man to become a human being.